Imagine a world where the boundaries between science and spirituality are no longer rigid lines, but overlapping territories that reveal profound truths about human happiness. Andrew Newberg, MD, a pioneering neuroscientist, has spent decades studying this intersection, exploring how our brains respond to spiritual experiences and how these responses are intricately tied to our sense of well-being. From the mystical rituals of ancient cultures to the meditative practices of modern society, Dr. Newberg's work illuminates the neural pathways that activate when we engage in activities that foster a sense of transcendence. He explains that when individuals participate in spiritual practices, such as meditation, prayer, or even deep contemplation, specific areas of the brain are activated, including the frontal lobe, which is associated with focus and planning, and the parietal lobe, which helps orient our sense of self in space. These neural activations contribute to a feeling of connectedness, not just with other people but with the universe at large. Interestingly, this sense of connection is strongly correlated with increased happiness and reduced stress, suggesting that the brain's response to spirituality is not merely symbolic but physiologically measurable. In his studies, Dr. Newberg has employed advanced imaging techniques like SPECT and fMRI scans to map these brain activities, revealing how spiritual experiences can induce changes in brain function that enhance emotional regulation and promote mental resilience. The implications of these findings are enormous, indicating that the pursuit of spiritual experiences might be as critical to human flourishing as traditional psychological interventions. By understanding the neural correlates of spirituality, we can begin to see happiness not as an abstract concept, but as a tangible result of specific brain functions shaped by our beliefs, practices, and experiences. Dr. Newberg's research also challenges conventional notions that spirituality and science are inherently at odds. He presents a compelling argument that spirituality is not simply a philosophical or cultural construct, but a biological phenomenon deeply embedded in the brain's architecture. In one of his landmark studies, participants who engaged in intensive meditation practices exhibited significant changes in the brain's limbic system, which is responsible for processing emotions. These changes included heightened activity in regions linked to compassion and empathy, as well as decreased activity in the areas that generate fear and anxiety. The result is a measurable increase in subjective well-being, corroborating centuries-old claims that spiritual practices can lead to inner peace and happiness. Moreover, Dr. Newberg identifies a feedback loop between the mind and the brain. As spiritual practices influence neural activity, the resulting mental states reinforce behaviors that further stimulate these beneficial brain areas. This creates a self-perpetuating cycle where the pursuit of spiritual growth leads to neurological and emotional transformation, which in turn fosters deeper engagement in spiritual practices. He emphasizes that happiness, in this context, is not a fleeting emotion but a sustainable state of being rooted in the brain's plasticity. By exploring the physiological underpinnings of spiritual experience, Dr. Newberg bridges the gap between ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience, offering a framework for understanding how practices traditionally deemed mystical can produce concrete, measurable benefits for the mind and body. His findings encourage a rethinking of mental health approaches, suggesting that integrating spiritual practices into daily life could complement conventional therapies, enhancing overall happiness and resilience. A key revelation in Dr. Newberg's work is the concept of neurotheology, a field he helped define, which examines the relationship between neural mechanisms and spiritual experiences. Neurotheology investigates how specific brain structures contribute to our sense of awe, transcendence, and ultimate purpose. For instance, the temporal lobes, which process sensory input and memory, are heavily involved in mystical experiences. Stimulation in these areas often results in profound feelings of unity and interconnectedness, experiences that many describe as life-changing. Dr. Newberg's studies indicate that these mystical experiences are not purely subjective, but are accompanied by measurable biochemical and electrical changes in the brain. Neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin are released in patterns that promote positive mood, while stress hormones like cortisol decrease, contributing to a heightened sense of well-being. These findings suggest that spirituality and happiness are deeply intertwined at a neurological level, with spiritual practices effectively rewiring the brain to cultivate lasting contentment. Furthermore, Dr. Newberg highlights that these experiences are universally human, transcending cultural and religious boundaries. Whether someone practices mindfulness, attends religious services, or engages in ritualistic ceremonies, the neurological effects are strikingly similar, pointing to an innate human capacity for spiritual experience. This universality challenges the notion that spirituality is merely a matter of personal belief, positioning it instead as an essential dimension of human existence, with tangible effects on mental health, emotional balance, and overall happiness. Dr. Newberg's exploration extends beyond individual experiences to societal implications, demonstrating how collective spiritual practices can influence communal happiness. In communities that prioritize ritual, meditation, or shared spiritual activities, there is often a higher prevalence of pro-social behaviors, such as cooperation, altruism, and empathy. These behaviors are not coincidental. Neuroscience reveals that shared spiritual practices stimulate the brain's reward system, creating a sense of joy and fulfillment that reinforces social bonds. Functional imaging shows that the anterior cingulate cortex and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, both associated with empathy and moral reasoning, become highly active during collective spiritual experiences. This activation not only enhances personal happiness, but also fosters social cohesion, illustrating a profound link between spirituality, neural function, and community well-being. Dr. Newberg argues that modern society, with its emphasis on material achievement and digital connectivity, often neglects these neural pathways, potentially contributing to rising rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness. By reintroducing collective spiritual practices, even in secular forms such as mindfulness groups or community rituals, societies can stimulate the brain's natural mechanisms for happiness, promoting mental health and social harmony simultaneously. The implications are transformative. By understanding and harnessing the brain-spirituality connection, individuals and communities alike can cultivate sustainable happiness in a manner grounded in both neuroscience and human tradition. The intersection of neuroscience, spirituality, and happiness also offers insight into the mechanisms of resilience and coping. Dr. Newberg notes that spiritual practices activate the prefrontal cortex, which regulates emotional responses and decision-making, while simultaneously dampening overactive limbic regions responsible for fear and anxiety. This dual effect enhances emotional regulation, allowing individuals to navigate stressors with greater ease and maintain a stable sense of well-being. Meditation, contemplative prayer, and other spiritual exercises have been shown to increase gray matter density in these critical regions, suggesting that the brain physically adapts to practices that encourage mindfulness and transcendence. Importantly, these adaptations are not limited to long-term practitioners. Even short-term engagement in spiritual activities can produce measurable benefits, including reduced blood pressure, improved immune response, and enhanced mood. Dr. Newberg emphasizes that these findings underscore the practical value of spirituality. It is not merely an abstract pursuit, but a tool for enhancing life satisfaction, resilience, and mental health. By incorporating spiritual practices into daily routines, individuals can cultivate a neural environment that supports happiness, strengthens emotional stability, and provides a buffer against life's inevitable challenges. This biological perspective on spirituality reframes happiness as a skill that can be actively developed through intentional practices, rather than a passive state dependent on external circumstances. Dr. Newberg also addresses the skeptical perspective, acknowledging that the connection between spirituality and happiness is complex and multifaceted. Not all spiritual experiences produce positive outcomes. Negative religious experiences or dogmatic practices can activate brain regions associated with fear, guilt, and social stress. However, his research shows that the quality and context of spiritual engagement are critical determinants of its neurological and emotional effects. Practices rooted in compassion, mindfulness, and genuine inquiry tend to stimulate beneficial neural patterns, while rigid, fear-based systems can have the opposite effect. This distinction highlights the importance of intentionality and self-awareness in spiritual practice, reinforcing that spirituality is not a guaranteed path to happiness, but a framework that, when approached thoughtfully, can produce profound neurological and psychological benefits. Dr. Newberg's work encourages a nuanced understanding of spirituality, one that recognizes its power to shape brain function and emotional states, while also emphasizing personal responsibility in cultivating practices that truly enhance well-being. One of the most striking aspects of Dr. Newberg's findings is the universality of the brain's response to spiritual stimuli. Across cultures, ages, and religious traditions, similar neural circuits are engaged during experiences of awe, meditation, or prayer. This universality suggests that the capacity for spiritual experience is hardwired into the human brain, offering a biological explanation for the widespread prevalence of spiritual practices throughout history. Moreover, these neural responses are closely linked to the brain's reward systems, creating intrinsic motivation for continued engagement in practices that foster happiness and meaning. By understanding these mechanisms, Dr. Newberg proposes that happiness is not merely a product of external circumstances or material success, but a reflection of how we consciously cultivate experiences that activate these neural pathways. Spirituality, therefore, is a potent tool for shaping the brain in ways that enhance joy, connection, and fulfillment, making it an essential element of a flourishing life. His research underscores that happiness and spirituality are not abstract ideals, but biologically grounded states that can be nurtured through intentional practice. In conclusion, Andrew Newberg's groundbreaking work bridges the worlds of neuroscience and spirituality, revealing that our brains are inherently designed to respond to transcendent experiences in ways that promote happiness, connection, and resilience. By mapping the neural correlates of spiritual practice, he provides a scientific foundation for understanding why rituals, meditation, and contemplative exercises have profound effects on mental and emotional well-being. His research suggests that cultivating spirituality is not merely a philosophical endeavor, but a neurological strategy for enhancing life satisfaction, reducing stress, and fostering a deeper sense of purpose. The unexpected link between neuroscience, spirituality, and happiness highlights a revolutionary insight that science and spirituality are not opposing forces, but complementary paths to understanding and optimizing the human experience. For anyone seeking a richer, more fulfilling life, Dr. Newberg's work offers a roadmap, one where the mysteries of the mind and the profundity of spiritual practice converge to create lasting happiness, a sense of unity, and an appreciation for the extraordinary capacity of the human brain to experience joy and transcendence.